G'day guys, my name is Wildcard and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for following my crappy content, I really do appreciate it. If you want to buy me an instant coffee, hit the join button down below. Otherwise, finally, the Rugby World Cup 2019 rematch is here! Eddie Jones finally gets his revenge, gets his rematch after almost 2 years in wait. The England Rugby is finally playing the Springboks, this time at Twickenham. This is the home of England Rugby, the Lions' den. So South Africa going into this game has a huge disadvantage in that regards. But can Sir Eddie actually topple the Springboks, topple the world champions, and get that nightmare out of his head? Or is the nightmare just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and haunt him even more in his dreams? We'll have to wait and see. There are some pretty interesting things going into these selections. Before we get into that, some of you guys might be wondering, hey, Wildcard, why are you wearing a Springbok jersey from 2007? Why would a random Australian kid have a Springbok jersey from 2007, no less? In 2007, a lot of you probably do remember, the Springboks played against Johnny Wilkinson's England in the Rugby World Cup final in France, beating England. History seems to be repeating itself, beating England for their second Rugby World Cup ever win for the Springboks in 2007. Now, what you guys probably don't remember is that Sir Eddie Jones was the assistant coach for the Springboks in 2007. And that is the reason I have a Springbok jersey. Because Sir Eddie was the coach, and Sir Eddie, just come back to coaching Australia, please. Sir Eddie was Wallabies coach prior to that, so despite what people might say, I was a huge fan of Sir Eddie, so I bought this jersey to support Sir Eddie. So there you go, and that's the only reason I have an England jersey, okay? Because Eddie Jones coaching England right now, and I would never buy an England jersey if it wasn't for Eddie Jones. That's a fact. Now, with the lineup, England actually had a pretty similar lineup from last week against Australia. A bit more changes from the bench. Joe Mala comes back after COVID cleared. Jamie George gets injured, so George is out for the hooker position. So the front row seems to have a bit of a massive weakness for the England team up against the Springboks, world famous front rowers. And also England's back rows seems to be unchanged. And also there had been a little bit of discipline issues from England. So we'll have to look at how they address the pressure under the Springbok team. The backline, England, Owen Farrells is out with an injury, with an ankle. So Marcus Smith at 10. Malu Tuilagi moves back at 12, essentially, opening up the wing for Joe Merchant at number 14. In the bench, this is the interesting part. England is opting the bomb squad strategy with an extra forward on the bench. Eddie Jones is definitely reliving his nightmares from the Rugby World Cup. He's opted to try to give the Springboks a taste of their own medicine with an extra forward on the bench. And the Springboks, however, has phased out from the bomb squad strategy essentially and starting to play more standard bench selections with 3 backs and 5 forwards. The big change in the Springbok backline, essentially, Handré Pollard comes back in at number 10, and Kobus Reinach comes back in at number 9. Herschel Yangshi's had quite a bit of criticism, and has been dropped down from 9 to 11. So those are the big changes of the team. We shall go through the exact matchup a little bit later on. So let's have a look at some of the histories of the two teams. So England and South Africa have played overall 43 points twice in the Rugby World Cup final, like grand final. And both times South Africa has won the Rugby World Cup over England, which is very good. So in the last few times, they've met, obviously, the famous win in the Rugby World Cup 2019, and England winning twice before that, South Africa twice before that, and then it's kind of back and forth both ways. But in the big matches, in the Rugby World Cup matches, the Springboks seems to be able to edge ahead just a little bit. So we shall see how this weekend's going to go. I think in the 2019 Rugby World Cup, everybody remember what happened. Sinclair came on, got knocked out, and it may or may not be the reason, but the England scrum was absolutely dominated. The Springboks were able to basically milk penalties on demand. Just like, we need a penalty now, let's get a 3 points on the board. And they can basically just utilize the big forwards, setting up mauls, just getting that scrum penalty constantly, and really like putting England in a position that was almost unwinnable. So it was pretty rough for Eddie Jones. It's for Eddie Jones. And England also had a really rough run in the Six Nations earlier this year. They lost to Scotland. First time in 38 years or 36 years. But in a very long time. They're not just lost to Scotland at home at Twickenham. So it's pretty bad looking for Eddie Jones. And this was in front of no crowd, so that definitely helped Scotland a little bit. But regardless, this was a game where England lost. And England lost this game in the kicking game. So if Springboks brings out their kicking game with Handré Pollard with good kicking, there could be a big issue for England to address as well. We should have a look at some other stuff. England basically finished 5th in the Six Nations, only beating France, which were favourites to win, but England got pretty dominated by Wales and Ireland. The Springboks, however, comes into this game not a perfect record as well, winning the Lions tour with 2 wins, 1 losses, which was really good. And then coming into the Rugby Championship, Springboks tripped over a little bit over the Wallabies in 2 games and lost 1 game and winning 1 game against the All Blacks. And on tour, the Springboks has not been beaten so far yet. The weather in Twickenham in London is going to be pretty good. There's probably going to be a little bit of wet conditions, a bit of humid, something that the Springboks have alluded to as to Herschel Yanks's average performance because of the humidity. So we shall see if that plays into a factor again, something that the coaches did mention. So let's have a look at the overall lineup. So this game, obviously, the big matchup is up front in the front forward pack, in the front rows. And this is just something that I think Eddie Jones is going to be struggling with. I'm very surprised that Eddie didn't call in Mako Vunipola to try to fill in some more experience in the propping position. The England prop last week against Australia's basically injury-prone front rowers was pretty ordinary. It wasn't that impressive. You would expect that if you want to win against the Springboks, you had to dominate the Australian essentially front rowers with debutants and injured, like people playing out of position and stuff. And England didn't able to do that. So I am reluctant to say that this is going to turn out too good for the English team. So in the front row, we have Bevan Rodd. He debuted last week against the Springboks. His second test match coming in at loosehead. Jamie Blair comes in at number 2 for the injured Jamie George at the hooker position. Kyle Sinclair, the only one that's remained from the Rugby World Cup final, and he was injured 4 minutes, knocked himself out into the game. So we shall see how Sinclair goes this game. This is basically Sinclair's nightmares coming back to haunt him, and we want to see if he can stand up against the Springboks front rowers. However, the front rows from Springboks is different from the Rugby World Cup. The Rugby World Cup starting props were the Beast, who's retired, Frans Malherbe, who's injured, and also he's been out of form a little bit. And then the bench was Kitsov, and who was the other bench reserve? And I think it was Kitsov and Nyake, I think was the reserve props. I may be wrong with the second reserve prop. But yeah, overall, the props has been changed a little bit as well for the Springboks. But the new props has been incredibly good. The Springboks have a really good training regime, just absolutely world-class scrummaging and set pieces. And so coming in at number 1, Ox Inche at the loosehead position, Bungi Bunabi, the only player that was at the starting spot in the Rugby World Cup final. Bungi Bunabi comes in at number 2. Trevor Nyake, I think he was on the bench. So he comes on the bench for the Rugby World Cup finals at the tight head position. And this front rower, you might notice, is I'm pretty sure that's wrong, actually. I'm pretty sure he's like 173. So I think this is actually wrong stat here. But the Springbok front rowers are a little bit shorter than the the English front row. I'm 100% sure he's not 193 ox in chair. So I apologize. I'm pretty sure he's 173. So I've definitely made a typo here. So the Springbok front rowers are much shorter with a lower body height, just big rounded guys. So this is going to be this already has a bit of advantage over the England props in that regards, and also the rookies are going to be struggling against the World Cup winning tight head essentially. And then in the loose heads, in second rows, Mauro Itoje comes in number 4, Johnny Hill number 5, up against Eben Etzebeth and Lou Diega. The two locking combinations, probably best in the world. Eben, water break! Etzebeth is back. Has probably the best lock in the world at the moment. Lou Diega comes off the bench for Franco Mostert at number 5. So England, Mauro Itoje. This is going to be, the line-out's going to be a little bit of a struggle as well because the hooker has been changed. So we shall see how that goes. Etzebeth will probably put a lot of pressure on line-outs. So this does not look too good for England so far. In the loose forwards, Courtney Lawes at number 6. Sam Underhill comes in at number 7. Tom Curry at number 8. The loose forwards, that has the Eddie Jones, if you notice, has opted for really, really big loose forwards over speed and agility. So guys like Sam Simmonds has been widely talked about in England being a much better selection at number 8 or in the loose forward position for England. In fact, Sam Simmonds is on the bench. I think one of the reasons Eddie Jones don't like him because Sam Simmonds is a little bit on the smaller side in the loose forwards. Like you can see, these guys are almost like prop size. You can call it Laws. It's basically the third line-out jumper essentially. Eddie Jones has been playing this option quite a while now. Tom Curry, 110 kilos. Again, that is huge. And Tom Curry normally plays 7, so Eddie Jones moved into number 8. So again, huge. And number 7, even 106 kilograms is quite large for a loose forward. Sam Underhill in open side flanker. And they're up against Sia Khaleesi, the Springbok captain, at 105 kilos. And Kwagga Smith, open side flanker, 95 kilos. So that's much lighter than the Sam Underhill. And Dwan Vermeulen at another big guy, number 8. So Kwagga Smith is probably the key player for the Springboks. This is the loose. Number 7 is actually the loose side flanker position. Sia Khaleesi is the open side flanker technically for the Springboks. They play left and right. So Kwagga Smith has been really, really good, injecting that pace, injecting that higher work rate in the breakdowns around the park for the Springboks, and he has been really, 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 really instrumental in injecting that extra bit of pressure into the breakdowns for the Springbok team. So his addition here has been, ever since it's been added recently, it's been really, really, really good for the Springboks. So once again, the England pack was penalized quite a lot last week against the Wallabies in the breakdowns, especially Michael Hooper were able to secure a few breakdowns. So maybe the size, the overlarge loose forwards may have a bit of a speed issues. They get into the breakdown on time. And also maybe just discipline issue overall was the big issue for England. So Australia were able to kick 5 penalties in the first half, just for the first 50 minutes to basically stay in the game, despite being absolutely atrocious overall around the game. I had no other way. England was just literally handing away points to the Wallabies. So that was largely in the breakdowns. So these guys really have to work a lot harder and really have to tidy up the discipline. Otherwise, this is going to be an absolute bloodbath for the Springboks. It does not look too good. In the back line, Ben Youngs, as we've already mentioned, Owen Farrell is injured. Ben Youngs stays at number 9. Ben Youngs actually had a really good game against Tonga where he was allowed to make a few plays himself. We did not see that last week against the Wallabies, probably because Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell already were 2 playmakers, so Ben Youngs would be a 3rd playmaker, which is a bit too much. So maybe this game Ben Youngs could come in as a bit more playmaking style at number 9 position. And Marcus Smith stays at number 10. He was really, really spectacular, setting up a try in the first half. So Marcus Smith had a bit of a low in the middle of the game where I think largely because the England 4-pack were not really providing the platform and giving away way too much penalties to allow the England backline to really build too much consistency, and also the handling was a bit of an issue for the England backline as well. And so Marcus Smith, this will be a very, very, this is the biggest game in his career. If he pulls out a good match here, he can really get that, he can really be, I would say, not vindicated. I would say he can actually be considered the future of England rugby, because at the moment he's only played against, subpar teams so far. Johnny May comes in at number 11. a very solid finisher for England team. Manu Tuilangi moves in to his normal position at inside center, number 12. Hard, big running. When he played at number 14 last week, despite having the jersey number 14, he was actually playing like in outside center position also. So that's something that England was probably trying as well. He did not look too good. So at number 12, somewhere he's much more comfortable. Henry Slade at number 13. Manu Tuilangi actually played 13 in the Rugby World Cup. So 12, 13 is somewhere he's probably more comfortable. Henry Slade stays at 13 jersey in the outside center position. Joe Merchant comes in at number 14 as a result of Manu Tuilangi move to 12. And Freddie Stewart, who had a really good, outstanding game last week against the Wallabies, comes in at number 15. I do think, so Freddie Stewart was pretty impressive. And so for the Springbok side, was probably the best our backs overall for the England team last week, I think. Cobus Reinhardt comes in at number 9, coming off the bench to number 9. And Handré Pollard comes off the bench to number 10. So Pollard has been criticized a little bit with his kicking game. So this will be a really important match for him to make sure that those kicking game goes well. And Cobus Reinhardt's box kicks has been really good overall. Overall has been pretty good. So him and Faf plays a very similar style, Cobus Reinhardt. So that'll be the strategy for the Springboks, is putting those high balls into Freddie Stewart to put a lot of pressure on these guys in the backline. So this is a pretty solid selection here for the 9 and 10, and it's pretty obvious that the strategy will be to exploit the kicking game out wide to at the back to the England at the back with the England backs. Makazole Mapimpi, one of the best finishers in Springboks team, who sadly don't get the ball too much as a result of the too much kicking game. But when he does get the ball, he scores tries. And there was a couple of really spectacular tries he scored. One of them was declined, but he was just absolutely spectacular. In the right place, right times, just the timing of his runs, like being able to recognize where the support line needs to be and get in the spot to get himself for a try. Absolutely spectacular, Makazole Mapimpi. Same with Damien Delende. He was giving more opportunity to run the ball against Scotland. And it was just breaking lines, doing exactly what you're expecting, and it was linking up with Makazole Mapimpi, setting up tries. It was just incredible performance by Delende. It's a shame to say that. It'll be a shame if Handré Pollard and the kicking game goes too out of hand and basically not able to give him any ball opportunities. Hopefully they don't do too much kicking from Pollard and actually unleash Delende once again like they did last week when when Elton Yanchis was the fly half. Lukam Uam, outside center, another really solid performance for the Springboks in the outside center position. Jesse Krill comes in at number 14, and Billy LaRue had an average game last week, 50-50 at number 15 once again. Many people who would have thought that Francois Stang will be at number 15, but Stang seems to be the favorite for the Springboks coaching staff to be on the bench. So once again, Francois Stang is the number 23 coming off for Billy LaRue. On the bench, the England forward pack still has a bit of issue. So Nick Dolly, again, he is a hooker. He is gonna struggle against the Springbok lineouts for sure. And making debuting against the best lineouts in the world, it's gonna be rough. Joe Mala comes in at number 17. He had a bit of a COVID issue. He's cleared again to play this week. So coming in at 17. And Will Stewart had a decent game last week against the Wallabies. Comes in at number 18. And the Springboks, Malcolm Marx, was off the bench in the Rugby World Cup finals. Comes off the bench again at number 16 position. He's the best finisher by far in terms of hooker. Stephen Kitsoff at number 17. Actually, it's either him or Dan Coles are two of the best finisher hookers in the world. So pretty neck to neck in that regard. Stephen Kitsoff, the only person that was from the bomb squad in the Rugby World Cup final on the bench. So Stephen Kitsoff at number 17 once again, loose head, and Vincent Koch comes in at number 18. I don't think he played in the Rugby World Cup final. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Nyake at number 18 in the Rugby World Cup, but let me know if my memory serves me wrong here. Charlie Ewels comes in at number 19. Again, this front row, this is the win condition for the Springboks. This does not look too good for the England side. Charlie Ewels comes in at number 19. Sam Simmons comes in at number 20. Up against Franco Mostert, who moves to the bench. And Jasper Visser stays at number 20 spot. Both are really impactful players. Jasper Visser injects a lot of pace as well when he comes off the bench, especially at number 8 position. If he comes in at number 8, really good player to have as a finisher. And interestingly, like I mentioned before, England has opted for one extra forward with Alex Lombard at number 21 position and Herschel Yanchis at number 21. By the way, Sam Simmons came off the bench last week, only played 5 minutes against Australia, and he helped England score the final try. I think he was one that made like an intercept, and then he basically, immediately showed that why he deserved the spot in the England team after being dropped like basically a week and a half ago. He was called back in as basically like an injury kind of thing. But yeah, now he's really trying to solidify himself as a spot for England team. And also he has like publicly, the England public thinks that he definitely deserves to start. And Eddie Jones, for whatever reason, maybe because his size on the smaller side, don't really like him at all. I was surprised he only got 5 minutes last week. He should have got like at least 20, maybe 30 minutes last week, considering how the game was really like stalling for England against the Wallabies. Anyways, Herschel Yanchis gets dropped to the bench after his average performance last week, couple weeks now. Rafi Quirk comes in at number 22, and Max Malin comes in 22. The same two players who played 22-23 against the Wallabies last week. Elton Yanchis gets dropped to the bench, and Francois Steyn stays at number 23. Two of the probably best players off the bench for the Springboks. Has literally turned games around and won matches for the Springboks in quite spectacular fashions against the All Blacks, against Wales. So these two guys are absolutely spectacular coming off the bench. I think that is probably the logic why Steyn is selected over Willie le Roux, because Willie le Roux's actual performance is not really that great, and they probably don't want Willie le Roux to come off the bench and like cost the not able to finish the game in a manner that they, not able to finish strong for the Springboks, essentially. Anyway, let me know what you think, guys. Let me know your predictions. Let me know what you think about the lineup. I do think that the Eddie Jones probably has a big issue in the front rows, and I do think that this is probably a bad idea for Eddie Jones to play one extra forward, to play the bomb squad in the bench, because one of the reasons the bomb squad was able to work for the Springboks is the fact that they had really good front rows. This front row, I just don't see how they're actually going to benefit with an extra like the extra, back rows and loose forwards. This is just not really going to help that much, because the whole point of the bomb squad is to dominate the set pieces. And if you don't have the front row to dominate the set pieces, it's really kind of like bad to have extra forwards in the pack, because you're just going to be like, you're not going to do anything essentially. And so it's really, I think kind of bad decision for Eddie Jones here. Let me know what you think. That is the preview. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I do really appreciate it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Yada, yada, yada. And I'll see you guys a bit later. Cheers.